In a small town surrounded by green trees filled with flowers, there lived a kind lady on a cozy farm. Her name was Ruth, and she was well known for taking care of animals with great patience, love, and affection. Among these animals, there was one who was her favorite, a little dog named Buddy. Buddy arrived at the farm when he was just a puppy, and Miss Ruth raised him with the same care she would give to a child. She offered him the best meals, brushed his fur until it shone in the sun, and even sang lullabies to help him sleep peacefully. As the years went by, Buddy grew into a strong and robust dog. However, as he grew, so did his ego, making him vain and stubborn. He began to believe he was the most important figure on the farm, no longer obeying Miss Ruth as he used to, and frequently causing trouble that led to problems and worries. One day, taking advantage of a moment of distraction, Buddy pushed the barn door open with his snout and escaped. He ran through the fields, jumping and barking, feeling free and unbound. However, his freedom didn't last long, as Miss Ruth, with her slow but determined steps, eventually found him on the neighbor's farm, playing with other dogs, all covered in mud. "Buddy, what are you doing here?" Miss Ruth scolded gently but firmly. "It's not right for you to cause so much trouble. It's time to come home and help me with the chores." And so, with patience and affection, she managed to bring Buddy back home, teaching him an important lesson about respect and responsibility. However, Buddy had never faced a situation like this before and felt deeply hurt in his pride. With loud barks and teeth grinding, he decided he didn't want to go home. Resentful, he took the path that led away from the farm, leaving behind the old lady who loved him so much and who could do nothing to stop him. Thus began the journey of the disobedient little dog, unaware that his decision would lead him to learn a great lesson. The sun was beginning to set behind the mountains when Buddy, the stubborn little dog, realized that hunger was gnawing at his stomach. He had spent the day wandering aimlessly, enjoying a freedom that now seemed bitter. Confident that he would easily find something to eat, as he always did on Miss Ruth's farm, he approached a distant farm from his home. This new farm was large and busy, with animals of all kinds and a stern-looking farmer who ran the place with an iron fist. Buddy, accustomed to the affection and pampering of Miss Ruth, soon realized that life on this new farm would not be so easy. The stern farmer had no patience for his mischief and demanded hard work from all the animals. Buddy tried to adapt, but the longing for his old life began to grow within him. He missed the fresh meats, the lullabies, and even Miss Ruth's loving patience. Each day that passed, the freedom he had so desired felt more and more like a burden. With his usual boldness, Buddy approached the trough where other dogs were eating peacefully. However, these dogs were different from him. They had worked hard all their lives and were not willing to share their food with a stranger. "Get out of here, intruder," the dogs barked, pushing him away with their strong bodies. Buddy tried to resist, but the farmer noticed the commotion and, with a strong voice, shouted, threatening him with his stick, "If you want to eat, you'll have to work." So, Buddy was forced to perform many tasks on the farm. During the day, he herded cows in the vast pastures, and at night, he stayed in the chicken coop to scare away foxes until dawn. He barely slept, his legs ached terribly, and to make matters worse, he hardly received any food scraps to eat. When night fell, Buddy was alone in a corner of the stable, far from the warm blanket and the soft manger of his old home. Tears streamed from his eyes as he remembered Miss Ruth's affection and the comfortable life he had abandoned. The days on the new farm were hard and lonely. Buddy, who once thought himself superior and vain, now faced the harsh reality of hard work and lack of affection. Each day that passed, he missed Ruth and the care she gave him more and more. The stern farmer had no patience for his weaknesses and demanded more and more work. Buddy, who once barked with joy, now whimpered with exhaustion and sadness. But his wounded pride prevented him from admitting his mistake. "I don't need anyone. I won't go back," he told himself, although an inner voice whispered that he missed Ruth and her love. Days turned into weeks, and Buddy's situation did not improve. The farmer and the other dogs treated him worse and worse. Stubbornly, he refused to return, but one night, as the moon shone in the sky and he looked at the stars, an epiphany struck him. He remembered Ruth's words, her patience, and her unconditional affection. It was then that he understood the value of home and the love he had disregarded. While Buddy faced the harsh lessons of life away from home, Miss Ruth did not lose hope of finding her beloved little dog. Day after day, with a heavy heart, she traveled the roads and nearby villages, asking every passerby and farmer if they had seen her beloved Buddy. "Please, if anyone finds my little dog, tell him I'm waiting with open arms," she said with a trembling voice, showing an old photograph of him. The people of the town, moved by Ruth's devotion, offered words of consolation, but no one knew Buddy's whereabouts. Determined to bring her companion back, Miss Ruth offered a reward for any information. She sold her furniture, work tools, and even the blankets that protected her farm from the cold. She sold her chickens, ducks, rabbits, and everything else she had. The farm, once full of life and joy, became silent and empty. Days turned into weeks and weeks into months. Miss Ruth sat at dusk under the oldest and largest tree on the farm, looking at the road in hopes of seeing Buddy's silhouette against the orange sky of sunset. "Come home, Buddy," she whispered to the wind. "Home is not a home without you." Time passed, and although her body weakened, Ruth's love for Buddy never wavered. She knew that, beyond his disobedience and pride, the bond that united them was indestructible. In the solitude of those starry nights, a burning desire kept her heart alive, the hope of reuniting with her disobedient little dog. One day, while working herding sheep under the strong sun, Buddy stumbled, exhausted and hungry. The farmer, impatient and relentless, struck him mercilessly with a shovel. "Move, you useless little dog," he shouted, and the sound of the blow echoed in the silence of the yard. It was the first time anyone had laid a hand on Buddy. The physical pain was intense, but the pain in his heart was even deeper. At that moment, Ruth's image appeared in his mind. He remembered her soft voice, her caresses, and how she had never, even in his most mischievous moments, raised a hand against him. Tears streamed from Buddy's eyes, and a muffled whimper escaped his throat. "What have I done?" he thought. The longing for Miss Ruth and the unconditional love she offered grew within him with every moment. Buddy understood that he had made a great mistake by leaving his home and his dear Miss. He realized that true freedom and happiness lay in the love and care he had always received from Miss Ruth. Determined to correct his mistakes, Buddy decided he needed to go home. He gathered all his strength and, on a silent night, escaped from the farm, beginning the long journey back. As he walked, his memories of Miss Ruth and the farm motivated him to keep going, despite his exhaustion and pain. While Buddy thought, remorse and sadness overwhelmed him. The harsh reality of his situation hit him like a cold, cruel wave. He had left behind a loving home to face a world that had no compassion, all for a moment of anger and pride. With his heart and body broken by hard work and mistreatment, Buddy made the most difficult decision of his life. It was time to go home and face the old lady he had abandoned. He didn't know if he would be welcomed, but the hope of receiving at least a look of forgiveness drove him forward. With slow and heavy steps, he began the long journey back to Miss Ruth's farm, where he had once been happy and loved. Buddy's heart was heavy with the burden of regret. As he approached an unfamiliar farm, the last one before starting the final path home, he decided to work in exchange for food and information about the way back. Humbly, Buddy promised the farmer he would work hard, and the farmer accepted the deal. Buddy worked harder than ever, with the hope that each day would bring him closer to his home. The farmer, seeing his determination, finally showed him the way back, a winding trail through the hills and forests that Buddy had never traveled alone. With his heart pounding and his legs trembling, Buddy followed the trail for a long time. Finally, he found himself in front of the boundaries of the farm he once called home. However, something was wrong. An unusual silence hung in the air, and a sense of emptiness enveloped everything. The barn door was open, the birds were not on the windows, and Miss Ruth's house had its windows closed, with no signs of life. "Miss Ruth, where are you?" He called with a faint voice, but only the echo of his own bark answered. Buddy searched every corner of the familiar farm, every shadow of the past, but found no one. The garden was neglected. Wildflowers and plants grew uncontrollably, and the house seemed to have given its last breath with the absence of its owner. Sadness and guilt consumed Buddy. He wandered through the farm, feeling the absence of Miss in every detail. The reality of his choice and its consequences weighed on him more than any hard work he had ever done. Buddy did not give up. He knew he needed to find Miss Ruth, ask for forgiveness, and try to make amends for his mistakes. With renewed determination, he decided to continue his search. He asked the neighbors and traveled around the farm. Finally, he found a farmer who told him that Miss Ruth had sold everything she owned and gone in search of her beloved little dog, offering rewards and asking everyone for information. Buddy's heart filled with hope. He knew that, like him, Miss Ruth had not given up. Following the clues and the accounts of the people, he continued his search, determined to find his owner. The reunion was not just a hope, but a certainty that true love could overcome any obstacle. And so, Buddy continued his journey, certain that somewhere, Miss Ruth was also looking for him, ready to receive him with open arms and a heart full of love and forgiveness. It was then that Buddy saw, hanging on the stable door, a small sign faded by time, with trembling letters that read, "I am looking for my little dog, Buddy. He is the only thing I have in this life. Please bring him back." Below, Miss Ruth's name was signed. Emotional with this demonstration of love, tears streamed from Buddy's eyes as he read those words filled with affection and despair. The little dog lowered his head, overwhelmed by the pain of loss and guilt. "I came too late," he thought. "My pride distanced me from a home that was a refuge of love and affection, now transformed into a monument of loneliness and remorse." Night fell over the abandoned farm, and under the cloak of stars, Buddy cried for the old friend who loved him and who had died waiting for him. It had been a long time, and now, in the quiet of the night, he understood the depth of his mistake and the price of his disobedience. In the silence of the farm, where memories floated like ghosts of the past, he desperately searched for some sign of Miss Ruth. It was then that, in a forgotten corner of the garden, he found a small grave marked with a wooden cross. Wildflowers grew around it, as if nature itself wanted to honor the resting place of the old lady. Buddy approached with trembling steps, his heart pounding with a mix of fear and hope. The name carved in the wood read, "Miss Ruth loved everyone, especially Buddy." His world crumbled. He fell to his knees before the grave, and tears flowed from his large, sad eyes. "Forgive me, dear friend," he murmured. "My pride blinded me, and my disobedience separated us forever." He cried until there were no more tears, even knowing that his weeping could not bring back his beloved friend. The moon rose in the sky, illuminating the farm with a light never seen before. Buddy stayed by Miss Ruth's grave all night, remembering every moment of love he had shared with his beloved friend. With each sigh, he felt the presence of the old lady, and in his heart, he promised to honor her memory by being the little dog she always believed he could be. When morning finally came, Buddy stood up. He knew that, although Miss Ruth was no longer physically present, her spirit and love would live forever on the farm. With one last look at the grave, he promised never to let pride distance him from what truly mattered. From then on, he would live to keep Miss Ruth's memory alive, taking care of the farm with the same love and dedication she had always shown. And so, Buddy found a new purpose, determined to turn his pain and regret into actions that reflected Miss Ruth's kindness and patience. Days passed since Buddy returned to the farm. Although his heart was filled with regret and love for Miss Ruth, loneliness and sadness were his only companions. He took care of the farm with devotion, but the absence of his beloved miss weighed more than any hard work. One morning, the neighbors passing by the farm noticed a deeper silence than usual. As they approached, they found Buddy lying motionless on the ground next to Miss Ruth's grave. The disobedient little dog who had learned the hardest lesson of all had died of sadness, with his head resting on the earth that covered his dear miss. The news spread through the town, and everyone remembered the story of the little dog and the old lady. In their memory, the neighbors took care of the farm and planted flowers around the grave, creating a small sanctuary of love and remorse. The story of Buddy, the disobedient little dog, teaches us that pride and disobedience can lead us down paths of loneliness and sadness. It reminds us that love and patience are treasures we must cherish and care for. It is never too late to change and seek forgiveness, but we must also act quickly in life. Sometimes we let the cloud of pride and disobedience obscure our judgment, distancing us from those who love us. This story teaches us that, although sincere regret cannot change the past, it can illuminate our future, guiding us to acts of kindness and love that reflect the lessons learned. May the memory of those we have lost always be a flame that lights our path. In remembering Miss Ruth's devotion and the love she had for Buddy, the neighbors realized the importance of keeping her legacy alive. Buddy, although deceased, left an eternal example of transformation and redemption. His story continues to be told not only as a warning about the dangers of pride, but also as a tribute to the power of love and patience. May his memory inspire all to cherish and care for the bonds we have, to seek forgiveness, and to act with kindness, lighting the path of all around us. If this message has touched your heart in any way, please share it with your friends and subscribe to our channel. Leave us your experiences in the comments, something that has left a mark on your life. It's time to share your stories and experiences with us. We hope to see you in the next video.